Metroid Prime 4 is here, and that closes the Nintendo Switch 2's launch window. How did Nintendo do with the follow-up to its most successful system ever? That's the big topic on this week's Next Gen Console Watch, coming up after these messages. Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following all the latest gaming hardware. I'm Daemon Hadfield, and this week I'm joined by Logan Plant, host of Nintendo Voice Chat, Max Scoville, host of Podcast Beyond, and Ryan McCaffrey, host of Podcast Unlocked. And with Metroid Prime 4 out now, that's the last game of the year from Nintendo for the Switch 2, effectively closing the new console's launch window. And so it is time for us, as video game critics, to grade the latest Nintendo console's debut. Now, the Switch 2 is a huge commercial success. It has sold over 10 million units already. It's the biggest console launch ever here in the US. Nintendo even raised its hardware forecast for the year in response to the Switch 2's spectacular performance. It now expects to shift 19 million units of its new console before the end of March 2026. But what do we think about Nintendo's first-party game lineup? Does it have a killer app? It's the most expensive Nintendo console ever, and yet that isn't holding it back in sales. Not only are people willing to pay more, Nintendo made sure it had enough stock available to meet demand. So, Logan, let's start with you. As the host of the #1 Nintendo podcast, how would you grade the Switch 2 launch window?
Yeah, well, first, even just hearing you say Metroid Prime 4 is out, I reviewed that game, I finished it, I've played it, and I still can't believe it. Like, it's been so long. It's great that that game is finally out in the wild. It's been a great year. I think undeniably this has been a very successful year, both from a software perspective and, as you said, a commercial perspective for Nintendo. I'm giving them a B+ overall. I think it's been a very strong launch window for Switch 2. I just think that you talked about maybe one of the most important parts of this is demand. They completely met demand for this. Black Friday has come and gone, and anyone who wanted to get a Switch 2 for their kids for Christmas was able to do it, and that's great, and that is usually a huge challenge for a console in its first year. So availability-wise, that's fantastic. Software-wise, I think it's been very strong. It does not live up to the 1-2 punch of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey last time around, two top 10 Nintendo games of all time, according to our recent list that came out within 7 months of each other. But it's still been really solid. Donkey Kong Bananza is the best Switch 2 game so far. I gave that game a 10. It's one of my favorite Nintendo games of all time. And then elsewhere, you've just had a lot of really solid stuff. Mario Kart World didn't hit like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It's just not as good as that game. It's still a great game. And then this fall has seen a lot of really solid entries like Kirby Air Riders. That's going to be really niche. It's doing super well in Japan, not as much over here, but the people that love that game really love that game. It's going to be, I think, a cult classic in this library the whole generation. We got a Zelda spinoff. We got Metroid Prime 4, which thankfully turned out very well after 8 years of development hell. So that was great to see too. So I think it's been really solid. I think there's some blemishes, like the Nintendo Switch 2 Edition stuff has been iffy, like that Mario Party update shouldn't have cost $20. That shouldn't have been $80. Mario Kart World just shouldn't have been $80. Like, the further we get from that decision, the more it just looks like we are trying to push people towards our digital Nintendo Switch 2 bundle edition to get people off of physical media. I really think that's the only reason that they did it. And it wasn't a great look, and it got them in a lot of hot water. And then some of their new IP, it was just really bad and forgettable. Dragon Drive, the wheelchair basketball game, was just super forgettable. Switch 2 Welcome Tour, which also started a fire by costing $10 and also wasn't a very good game. So it was by no means a perfect year, but across the board, I think it's really strong with a B+.
That all sounds very reasonable to me. I would agree with most of that. Ryan, what would you think? I know you, like many people out there, are still really just getting impatient for the next 3D Mario game.
I'm going to keep beating the drum, and I appreciate that you're now just, you already know what I'm going to say with regard to that. Yeah, I mean, we are now at, 8 years. I actually had to think about it for a second, which means it's going to be at least 9 by the, if it happens to come out next fall for the next mainline 3D Mario game. But yeah, I mean, it's tough to argue really against what Logan had to say there. I would go B-. I would just go a little bit, give him a little bit slightly lower grade, only because for just me personally, the games they've shipped, while all very good, just none of them have quite hit with me the way I had wanted them to. I bought a system on day one. I don't regret doing that, especially as we kind of continually live in these uncertain tariff influenced times with regard to consumer electronics and other things for that matter. So I'm not sorry that I got one right at launch. I got my daughter one for Christmas, the Pokemon bundle, And I'm curious. I'm actually curious to see her reaction to it, because when she knows I have the Switch 2. She's obviously seen it, but she hasn't really expressed a ton of excitement in it yet. And I think it's mostly because there haven't really been any Switch 2 specific things that she can't play on her Switch 1, that my old Switch 1 that's now hers. But still, I know she's going to enjoy the Switch 2 certainly. But yeah, I mean, as much as I was so hyped for Donkey Kong, especially after Logan's review, it's amazing, don't get me wrong, but it just hasn't quite hit with me the way I had hoped it would. I'm not super bullish on Metroid. And then, the other stuff like Zelda spin-off Hyrule Wars, we haven't seen the A-list stuff yet, which Logan did point out. And hopefully, 3D Zelda is obviously years and years away, but hopefully 3D Mario is coming up in the not too distant future, and maybe 2D Zelda or even potentially 2D Mario, although Wonder which I reviewed, wasn't that long ago. But I am optimistic for 2026. I'm happy I bought the system, but yeah, it's impossible to compete with the first year and the first calendar year even of the Switch 1. There are actually few systems ever that can, let alone limiting it to another Nintendo system. But any PlayStation, any Xbox, it's hard to beat 2017 for the original Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, I agree. I want to get Max's thoughts on this year, but real quick, Logan, thinking about that incredible launch year for the Switch 1 in 2017, do you think that was just a happy accident that things lined up that way, or was it something to the fact that Nintendo had a lot more to prove back then coming out of the Wii U era? Right.
Yeah, it's exactly the second one. All you have to do is look at their release calendar in 2015 and 2016 and see they put nothing out. And they were just all full steam ahead on making games for Switch 1 because Nintendo had essentially disappeared in the early 2010s and nobody was thinking about them. So they had to do that. They had to push Zelda Breath of the Wild from a Wii U exclusive to be on Switch, which was a big deal when they announced that. Mario Odyssey, there was maybe even going to be a Wii U game. And then, of course, they pushed that to Switch, poured over Mario Kart 8, the best Wii U game with a bunch of new stuff. Yeah, it's I think the software lineup for Switch 2's first year, like if this was not being graded as like a console launcher, which it is, and that's how we're grading it, this is a really solid year of software. It's just doesn't live up to that first year come out swinging. It's like just like the Switch 2 is an iterative step forward from the Switch 1, this software lineup is it's a really solid year of Nintendo games.
All right, so Nintendo Switch 2 in 2025, B+ from Logan, B- from Ryan. Max, how about you?
I'm going to just split the difference and go with the B, but specifically B for B-list, because yeah, I mean, to everyone's point, it's weird how it's not the heavy hitters. It's not Mario. It's not Zelda. I love Donkey Kong Bonanza. I think that's my game of the year. I absolutely adored it, but it's not a 3D Mario. It's not. I think a lot of people were a harder sell on that, whereas Mario has this kind of universal appeal. A lot of weird Donkey Kong haters came out of the woodwork. Like it was bizarre. Like my wife was like, I don't like looking at him, and I'm like, what do you mean? He's a funny monkey. What the hell? So we had a big fight about that. But no, I don't know. You got Kirby Air Riders, which isn't even like a mainline Kirby game. It's the sort of weird spin-off of that. Mario Kart World, again, really huge disappointment, and I think it says a lot that I'm as positive on the Switch. It says a lot about Donkey Kong Bonanza in particular. That yeah, I mean, I felt a little bit burned by World. I did very much appreciate. I think it's got a lot of potential. Again, it's a whole world there, and I have some hope, some faith that Nintendo is going to fill it up with things. They just put up a big patch today that addressed a bunch of kind of known issues and did some little quality of life tweaks. But I really hope they're cooking up some kind of a content drop to give this a little bit more oomph. It'd be really nice for all the people who picked up new Switches and are probably jumping on this because they assume it's as good as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But yeah, as for the lineup, yeah, I mean, it is an iterative system. It when I got it, it didn't feel like a new toy. It felt like a new phone. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm currently playing Link's Awakening with my daughter, and it runs beautifully, which is not something you can necessarily say about how it ran on the base Switch. Like it kind of chugged a bit here and there. And I don't know, it's nice to see in the same way that a bunch of Wii U games got deluxe versions. It's nice to see how a bunch of Switch 1 games are getting little updates, and occasionally you have to pay a few extra bucks. Occasionally you have to pay a lot of extra bucks. Animal Crossing New Horizons, the Switch 2 upgrade for that is like $5 or something?
$5, yeah.
Yeah, that feels incredibly reasonable and generous. And at the same time, they're still doing new content drops for people playing on Switch One. That's looking ahead at next year. But yeah, I mean, it didn't quite have that, that fun gimmick or that fun sort of special new thing that I was hoping for. You kind of hope for from a new system, but that is probably for the best. The Wii U was completely out there and trying to one up the Wii, and that just didn't work. And I feel like they kind of dialed things back, and they gave us one of the best systems ever made. With the Switch 2, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. They're kind of sticking with what it is. And I have faith that with the amount of consoles they've sold, there are a lot of Switch 2 games in the works. So looking forward to that.
All right, we all seem to be in agreement. Switch 2 definitely off to a really good start in 2025, but looking ahead to 2026, how do things look? There's nothing of the A-listers that Ryan mentioned. There's not a new 3D Mario announced yet, or new Zelda. But what we know so far is that Animal Crossing New Horizons, the Switch 2 version, is coming. Also in January, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade is coming, and that's cool. But we're also getting third-party games day one, which is shocking to me, like Resident Evil Requiem. It's coming to Switch 2 at launch.
Yeah.
007 First Light. 007 First Light is coming in March. It's crazy. February is also going to be Mario Tennis Fever. March is Pokemon Pokopia. And then looking, later into the year, Dustbloods, the next FromSoft game, is currently a Switch 2 exclusive. Elden Ring is coming eventually. Hopefully that turns out better than when we saw it at Gamescom. Fallout 4 Anniversary Edition is coming. Then Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is coming over. Lego Batman Legacy of the Dark Knight. Super Mario Wonder is coming to Switch 2. And then Yoshi and the Mysterious Book. So that's everything that we know of, the big stuff that we know of that's coming so far. Logan, how are you feeling about 2026 for the Switch 2?
Yeah, I think it looks fine. It looks good so far. It looks very much like we were just talking about. These are solid Nintendo games that Nintendo fans will really like, but for kind of a general wider audience who really wants to show up for a Mario, a Zelda, a Smash Brothers, that stuff's not here yet, and I don't think any of it's coming next year. What I do think is coming is next year's Pokemon's 30th anniversary. Pokemon Gen 10 will be one of the best-selling games next year. I expect that to be a Switch 2 exclusive. So that's probably going to be their huge fall game. So I think you're still looking at another year that doesn't have the stuff that like Ryan is looking for example. But I think some of this is really solid. You're just getting more Nintendo franchises, getting their great sequels to Switch 1 games on Switch 2. Three Houses, best-selling strategy RPG of all time. Here's Fortune's Weave, a new Fire Emblem coming out on Switch 2. So I think it looks solid, but not like 9 or 10 out of 10 exciting yet.
Ryan, you think you'll revisit either Mario Wonder or even Indiana Jones and the Great Circle on Switch 2?
Unlikely. I mean, there's so many new games to play that I've got I'm part of the problem. I paid the $40 for Galaxy 1 and 2 on Switch 2. So if I even get time to revisit something older, that's probably what it's going to be, because I love the Galaxy games so much. But yeah, I wonder if 3D Mario, Logan's not optimistic, but if it happened next year, we're staring down 3D Mario and GTA 6 in the fall. Wow, that would be pretty darn impressive. Maybe be the best fall ever, but yeah. I'm sure Logan probably has a better sense of when that game's going to finally show up. If it doesn't show up next year, it means we're going a decade at least between new mainline 3D Mario games, which is insane to me.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Max, is there anything you're looking forward to playing on the Switch 2 next year thus far?
I'm just morbidly curious about Duskbloods. I was one of the many Bloodborne fans who was really sad that wasn't Bloodborne 2 when it got revealed on that Nintendo Direct, but it still looks really interesting. And I don't know, Miyazaki said that it's his approach to a multiplayer game. And initially one of my concerns was, will it have a big enough install base to sustain a good amount of players? But looking at the Switch's sales numbers, I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem. I just also don't know what this game is.
Yep. It's a little bit of a question mark on the release calendar for now. Okay, viewers, listeners, we want to know, how would you grade Nintendo Switch 2's launch window? Make sure to vote at IGN.com the day this episode goes live. We'll share the results with you next episode, just like we can with last episode's poll. We were talking about the Steam machine coming next year, and we asked, do you game on PC currently? And you were pretty much split down the middle. 46.5% said yes, you build a gaming PC, and 44.8% said nope, you're a console gamer. So that's pretty much right down the middle. Just under 9% said you dabble, maybe you do some handheld PC gaming on something like the Steam Deck. So definitely interesting to talk more about Steam Machine on this show going into next year. Now, calling all Fallout fans, the Wand Company has created a 1x1 screen-accurate replica of the Pip-Boy 3000 MKV, built using the actual geometry from the Fallout TV series. It's got a die-cast metal faceplate, hand-weathered finish, memory foam cuff, and a working TFT LCD screen that displays over 45 in-universe screens. It's also a fully functional clock with an alarm mode, FM radio, and it comes with a premium display stand that turns it into the ultimate desk or nightstand centerpiece. Whether you're cosplaying, collecting, or just living your best wasteland life, this is the perfect Pip-Boy. Grab yours now at store.ign.com before they're gone. And that is our show. Thank you to Logan, Max, and Ryan for joining me today. Thank you to everyone working behind the scenes to make this episode possible. My name is Daemon. We'll be back next week with more on the latest in gaming hardware. We'll see you then. This episode of Next Gen Console Watch was produced by myself, Daemon Hadfield, and Jobert Atienza. Technical direction is by Jobert Atienza, with technical production by Marian Franzen and Amir Rakib. Audio engineering is handled by Amir Rakib. Post-production editing is by Jobert Atienza, and graphic design is by Justin Vachon. Next Gen Console Watch is an IGN production and part of the Geek Media Network.